So Bernadette, good to see you.
Hello.
I'm going to hand this over to you to drive the show. If you need anything from us, just say it verbally,
Okay.
and because we can hear everything that's going on, but we're going to be off screen so you can take care of the next chunk of time for us. When we come back on toward the end of your time, we're coming back because we have questions from the audience or because you're running short on time and it's time to move on to the next thing. So that when you see us, that's a good notion, a good signal that we have something good to say. I'll let you introduce everybody, and we'll see you soon. Thank you, guys.
Great. Thank you so much. And thank you for having us. And thank you to Matt, Amy, and John for organizing this. It's great to get everyone together. And I think it's a great way for us to start our year as we look forward to the year ahead and hopefully as we start to see our rebound and recovery. And I apologize on behalf of Tom at the last minute, was unable to attend from Abramorama today. So apologies that Tom I know was listed and he won't be with us, but he said to send his greetings to everyone. And unlike Sperling, who thinks it's cold in LA, I'm actually staring at snow as the snow is coming down here in New Jersey where I live. So thank you to our panelists for being with us today. We're excited to have this conversation. And I'll just let everyone briefly introduce themselves. Joe is directly to my right, so I'll go with Joe first. Joe, if you can just briefly introduce yourselves, and then we'll just go around our room here.
Sure. Hi, Joe Garel, head film buyer for Cinepolis USA. And that's it.
Lynne, if you want to go next.
Yeah, sure. Hi, I'm Lynne Schmidt. I am the Senior Vice President of Strategic Partnerships and Operations at Fathom Events.
Great, and Kymberli.
Hi, everyone. Kymberli Frueh from Trafalgar Releasing. I'm the head of content for our global event cinema initiatives.
Great. So I think maybe just to start, if we take a little bit of a look back at what we've been doing over the past few months. Joe, obviously you've got theaters that are open, so you've been participating and showing and exhibiting some event cinema content. Kymberli, Lynne, and myself have been out there doing some releasing this over the past few months. And it's obviously been a very interesting time for all of us. And I think we've learned a lot and we've had to change some of our business models and our practices. I know for us at CineLife Entertainment, I should say CineLife Entertainment is the event cinema division of Spotlight Cinema Networks. I should have said that sooner, sorry. And Spotlight is very honored to be a sponsor of this conference today. And I'm very proud to represent the Spotlight team today. So over the past few months at CineLife, we've had a few pieces of content we've gone out with. One was specifically just for outdoor venues. There was a Rolling Stones concert that was only for outdoor venues that we made available to exhibitors for a few months over the summertime. We did go out with an original Christmas movie at Christmas time, a new telling of A Christmas Carol. And then we did also have a ballet version of Dracula in October, and we did the Halloween re-release. That was our greatest success over the past few months, grossed over $1 million worldwide. But with everything that we've done, we obviously have new things that we've had to learn and new things we've had to do. So I don't know, maybe Kymberli, if we want to start with you about, if you want to talk about some of the things you've done over the past few months during the pandemic.
Absolutely. So we're really focused on things that can transcend borders as far as content, specifically music events, arts and entertainment. And the cadence of, the cinema closures around the globe, it really helps us because in some territories where they're open, it kind of balances out where cinemas are closed. So when we look for content like BTS or Stevie Nicks, we want to make sure that obviously it is of global interest, which really helps the content partners because, to be able to monetize content in a bigger way and make sure that we're balancing the closures against the openings has been significant for us. As you guys know, BTS went out to, or if you don't know, roughly 90 territories across the globe. And we achieved a $14 million payday in the height of the pandemic. So that had a lot to do with a little bit of change of strategy, but really being able to release globally.
Mm-hmm. And Lynne, Fathom obviously has had a lot of releases over the past few months too. If you want to speak a little bit about what you've been doing over the past couple of months.
Yeah, I mean, like a lot of people, we had a lot of content planned for 2020 and pushed a lot of that to Q4. So when theaters started opening in mass, originally in the US around September, we had a lot of content to provide exhibition. What changed in our strategy with the pandemic and with operating hours is that we did expand the amount of play dates that we did for our content, but we still tried to offer a breadth of programming across the verticals that Fathom's known for. So classics, arts and entertainment, inspirational product, some original programs. So we continued with that and kind of were able to see how audiences responded based on their level of comfort coming out to cinemas, and learned a lot from that.
Mhm. And Joe, from the exhibition standpoint, what types of content have you shown from an event cinema standpoint over the past few months? Where
Well, I
you're
mean,
open?
yeah, I mean, our biggest shining stars come from Trafalgar, and that was purely BTS. Stevie Nicks 24 Karat Gold did some great business for us as well. As far as the US goes, internationally, BTS, though, we killed on it. It was Latin American number was out of control. It was actually on par with pre-pandemic numbers, which
Wow.
nobody expected that. So that was a great thing. You know, we did really well with Halloween, the re-release, but we kind of spearheaded that from the get-go, from the original. I think it was 2 years ago, and you know, we've just been playing whatever we can get our hands on. I mean, as you know, and everybody else is, everybody's playing classic films right now. So trying to create a series that you can get to your audience in a way that your competitors can't is really the hard times that we're having right now. So or challenging times, I guess what I would say. But we're making it work for sure.
And Joe, you hit on an interesting point as it comes to classic film. I mean, that is something we've seen pre-pandemic, a lot of success in the event cinema category, having obviously Fathom's Turner Classic Movie Series, and to have re-releases or anniversaries of more classic film titles. Since so much of what's playing right now at theaters is more classic film titles, do you still think there's a role for in event cinema, you know, classic films as we move forward over the next 6, 12, 24 months even?
Well, I think, you know, it's first and foremost, the first 6 months, I think it's going to flatten out. I don't think there's much left that we can play that still sparks an interest to bring an audience in. But, you know, once we back off and we're playing more mainstream titles, give it 12 months, give it 24 months, then we can start going back in. But to have this much content coming at the audience, I mean, we're competing with television right now as well. I mean, most of the stuff we're playing in our cinemas, I'm seeing it on, you know, TNT or something like that, or AMC during the day. So the price points are so low. I don't know. I just think that there's going to be you got to step away from these classic titles for a bit before we can start making it special again and have people come in for that one-time viewing.
And Lynn, I know Fathom right now has the Turner Classic Movie Series. Has anything based on the current environment of more classic films being shown changed the strategy on the TCM series?
Yeah, I think it's changed in some of the releasing that we're doing and the timing of it. But I can say from this past weekend, we did have our first Turner Classic Movie of the year in Maltese Falcon's 80th anniversary. And some positive takeaways that we have from that is that that's obviously more targeted towards an older audience. And that was what our concern of the older audience coming out in general. And we saw really good numbers on Sunday for Maltese Falcon. So we're excited about it. We think that if there's good anniversary product that resonates with people, and we do some creative marketing with exhibition, that we're going to have success still with our Turner Classics and other anniversary products this year.
And I don't think anyone, we haven't done anything with virtual cinema over the past few months. Have any of you? I don't think any of you have done virtual cinema.
We've done, as a follow-on and really to appease content partners, we've done EVOD solutions, but we don't promote that or market that during the cinema window because we don't want to cannibalize what's going on in the cinemas. And generally we hold that back and then promote after the product is completely out of the marketplace, only to offer convenience for, especially with like Stevie Nicks, you know, a much larger, older audience that may be a little bit nervous about going back to cinemas, or quite honestly, with New York and LA being closed, they have no other way to see it. So we'll go out with an EVOD experience, create a moment in time online, and then that captures anybody who wasn't able to see it because their local market wasn't open, or they just quite honestly were too nervous about going out.
And as we're looking kind of in the shorter term of the next maybe 6 months, is there any content that you already have? I mean, Lynne, you just mentioned you're already out there right now with something. I know for us, for example, we had content that was supposed to be in April and May and through the summer last year. Some of it we can easily, you know, push forward into this year. So we're sitting on some good pieces of content where we're waiting for the right time. Obviously, there were some things that we've gone out with over the past few months that we felt like we wanted to go out there and do something with. So we're excited about the things that we are able to just push forward until the timing is maybe a little bit better, particularly like you say, Kymberli, and some of the, you know, it's something that really needs some of those major markets like New York and LA to be open. And then we've also had, and I'm sure, you know, Joe, you've had this experience, and Lynne and Kymberli, we also had some content where we had done it in a year. We did it a year ago, but we still could have rights for that. So it wasn't something that we were actively marketing that we still had, because our opportunity and our big release of it had gone. But we had exhibitors, particularly as they were starting to reopen, they wanted to just have some other types of content. Maybe they had never seen something before. Kymberli and Lynne, I think you both have similar things like that, where exhibitors can come to you and say, hey, I know you maybe ran this a year ago. Do you still have theatrical rights? If so, can we run this right now? So, you know, I think you both do, but I don't want to speak for you on that. If exhibitors can come to you and ask you those types of questions for some of your content.
From Trafalgar's perspective, you know, when this whole pandemic started, we really started working with content partners to secure longer windows for that very reason, knowing that, you know, there's a lot of cinemas that are just beginning to reopen. They may not hit our specific event date, but for example, we released Elvis on December 4th with Warner Brothers, and it's still out there in the marketplace for cinemas that are beginning to reopen. So we're looking at a longer tail approach with content partners that gives us a little bit more agility than we would have had in the past. And then they also understand that, you know, their platforms need to be moved back a bit when the content leaves us and goes to other windows. So most content partners really see the true benefit in event cinema being the leader in revenue, and they don't want to cannibalize that. And they've been remarkably flexible in giving us longer windows that help our cinema partners.
Mm-hmm. And is there anything over the next few months specifically that you're going to be releasing that you want to talk about now? I know from our perspective, we did have an event that was supposed to be a kind of a look back at the TV show The Sopranos, and that was supposed to be last year. I know a lot of exhibitors had booked that because it was supposed to be in April of last year. And what's interesting now about the timing is that in some ways it's a little bit more relevant than it was pre-pandemic, because it's something that people have streamed a lot while they've been at home. And The Sopranos was one of the more streamed television shows during the pandemic. So it's actually interesting in a sense that I think it's given us maybe a little bit more relevancy than it actually did a year ago. So that's interesting. So we're looking forward to having that later this year, as well as some of our other pieces of content that we're looking to find the right dates for. Anybody else wants to jump in there? Just give me a second.
Yeah, as the exhibitor right now, we're facing probably the biggest one that we're ever going to see is this Billie Eilish concert on February 26th, or the documentary that they have. Neon Releasing's putting it out. We haven't found out the release pattern yet, so I'm hoping that they know what they have and go hard, because I think we could sell out entire theaters with this thing, not just auditoriums, but all 10 screens of my 10 screen theater in McKinney, Texas. Or it's that big, and there's that much, you know, want for these teenage girls to come to the movie theaters right now. And I think that would be exciting. Next up would be Pearl Jam Gigaton. That one got pushed, and that I think was only going to IMAX, but big excitement on that. And I think Pearl Jam, you know, clearly is one of the leaders in music as it is. can do some great business. And last was, I'm still excited about it, is Enormous, the George story from Trafalgar. We're waiting for, to pull the trigger on that one. So those are the three that I'm really most looking forward to.
So Joe, I mean, one thing, those are all music.
Those are all music. Yeah. I mean, we would love it if we could see, comedians doing stand-up tours. I've reached out to Netflix several times to discuss the ideas of maybe bringing in the Dave Chappelle stand-up tour, or the Eddie Murphy one, or any of these. But you hit a lot of walls with content providers being able to get that done theatrically. So it's we're sitting here with these screens ready to play whatever you guys have to offer. It's just getting those deals done is pretty much the big headache that we're facing.
And I think music was definitely one of the categories pre-pandemic that was very exciting for an event cinema space. I think that we all would agree that's something that probably will continue. I think particularly when there isn't live, movie theaters will be open before live music venues are open and have people touring. So it is a unique opportunity for us in the event cinema category to bring that to exhibition, anything we can kind of get our hands on from a music perspective. And Joe, you see that continuing, obviously, if those are your top three things you're looking forward to.
Well, I mean, they're the top money generating alternative content stuff that we've had in the last 5 years. Anything else has been, decent, okay, or a complete miss altogether. Where, we had one just recently from, what was the name of that company?
You don't need to say the name of the company if it wasn't good, Joe. You can just
And
it was like an art thing, and we had zero attendance in a majority of our buildings, and unfortunately it just didn't work. So the cost of delivering those prints and all that, it probably was a lot for that company to bear, and we couldn't draw the audience.
One area that has been, I think, helpful over the past few months has been really more so in the latter part of last year, were the private screening rooms. So I know for us, with some of the content we've been out there with, we have had exhibitors who've put it on their private, when they're doing private rentals. And that's been a nice little bright spot, I think, too. Particularly we had with our Christmas movie that we had a few exhibitors that did make it available, and that was probably one of the brighter spots of our performance on that title in particular. And I mean, Kymberli or Lynne, I think you probably agree with me on that one, but just, if you want to jump in and say anything on that.
Yeah, we did that offering for the Nutcracker. We saw some good numbers with the Nutcracker this past year, given that there wasn't any ability for people across the country to see that live like you normally would with your family. And so we did the Nutcracker both on the consumer side, and we offered that for a private test with Cinemark, since they were really expanding their model at that time. So we did see success there. And that's something I think that us and our content partners would be interested in continuing.
And the same with us, we're building into our contracts with content partners, the ability to do private events and streaming, et cetera. So that helps everyone. And just anticipating what we're going to need go forward as cinemas reopen. So it's pretty exciting. And Joe, I wanted to go back to Enormous because we're excited too. And I just have to give a big shout out to the content partner. This was something that we had scheduled back in June of last year, and they have been so patient and believe in cinema so much, and they've had an opportunity to release on other platforms. And they're like, no, we want to wait for our moment in cinema. So we're going to get it out there just as soon as we can, as soon as the Pacific Northwest corridor opens up to a capacity that makes commercial sense. But the great news is we have content partners out there that really do believe in this platform and want to wait.
Exciting. Very exciting.
Yeah, Kymberli, that's a really great point, because especially, for things we were supposed to be doing last April, the content providers have been waiting. And a lot of them are waiting because they also believe in the theatrical and they want to do the theatrical. It's an excellent point, Kymberli, that we should also give them a lot of credit for that patience and for that belief long-term, which I think is great. And then we've kind of touched on this a little bit, but I would say certainly something that, pre-pandemic, we often were looking for one night only, driving attendance to one night only, maybe then with additional encore performances. I would say certainly with everything we've had over the past few months, what's helped us with success is having more showtimes. Because obviously with capacity constraints, the more showtimes we can get, the better it is for the content. So I certainly would say we feel like that's something very important over the next 6 to 12 months, where we traditionally might be going and just saying, please give us a Wednesday night. I think now we're being a little more open-ended and saying we're going to open it maybe on this Wednesday night, drive all of our PR and our marketing efforts towards that one night with the encore performances, or that there is a longer window for the content, a longer opportunity for people to be able to go and see it. I know, for example, in the case of our Rolling Stones concert we did this summer, I think it was like 5 months, we made it available to exhibitors to program whenever they had an opportunity. Or in some cases, then they could show it on a weekly basis. People could show it a lot more.
I'd love to show it right now. I'm just going to throw it out there.
You want to show it right now, Joe? I know.
People are going to the movies in Texas and Florida, and I have those theaters available for you. Just
Okay.
out there. I'd love to put it in indoor cinema.
I like that you've made it public in the forum, Joe. That's good, though.
Yeah, why not? Let's have some fun.
So everyone can hear. I got you.
Yeah.
But so I would certainly say, I think that's an important, as we look forward to, in the shorter term of the next 6 months. And then, as hopefully as things start to normalize. Kymberli or Lynne, I don't know if you have thoughts on that and how we've been asking for, things a little bit differently. And I obviously we always want to collaborate with our partners in exhibition, but it's even more important, especially where there are capacity constraints. So Lynne, if you want to kind of jump in first, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, we're still trying to be mindful of providing content during the week for theaters that are open. That has always been like our stance, is that's when we provide the most value to theaters. But given the operating hours of several theater locations across the country are weekend only, we are adapting to that and working with content providers and exhibition on when they can play the content that works for them. So we're excited about our event next week, Earwig and the Witch, an anime title with G-Kids. It's the first Ghibli title in 6 years, first new one. That we're playing that not only during the week, but the weekend too. And we've continued to offer more play dates. When it was traditionally, and I do believe one night events can be successful pre-pandemic world, but we are gonna have to adjust for the social distancing and capacity restrictions for the foreseeable future. So we're gonna work with exhibition and content around that.
Mm-hmm.
As I mentioned before, Bernadette, we're doing the same, building out longer windows with our content partners, making sure that it is still event cinema. It is a moment in the cinemas, but for cinemas that are reopening, we can hold it over. If there's anything in our vault that obviously is of interest, we will go back and try to clear that. So we're just trying to remain as flexible as we can, knowing that we've got to drive consumers back to the movie theaters and we've got to keep the revenue coming in.
Yeah, and I think it's also, Joe, with Billie Eilish or some of those too, sometimes it's, an audience that's easier to tap into in the sense that, the fans are following the artist on social media and they're aware of what's going on. And in some cases, it might be that, something that helps draw them back. And then when they see everything that's in place to give them that, comfortable environment of being in the theater is probably, I would think, helpful.
Yeah, I mean, what we've been able to have a lot of success with is the marketing tools that are provided to us. Once we get our hands on those and we have a date solidified, we go out heavy to each of our our loyalty membership, to our email membership, to on-screen advertising, to display takeovers within the auditoriums. I mean, we go nuts. We don't have a contractual obligation with some other companies, so we can kind of do what we want, and that gives us the flexibility to really push that marketing inside the theater itself. And it works out great. I mean, like for us to have such success on Halloween, the classic title that you guys did, it was because we pushed it hard to our audience. We said, look, this is coming on this date. You're a loyalty member. We'll give you $1 discount for the ticket. I mean, we do all these different fun, things. Or I think we partnered with Soundfi on the original one. So Soundfi came into a couple auditoriums and provided, the next level sound experience to listen to it in 3D sound in your own headphones on a movie theater screen. So that was pretty exciting too. as far as what we're seeing right now is we're going to have an onslaught of first run product coming our way in the first 6 months, and when we're back open, and then after that it's going to be a desert for a year and a half. So that's going to be the negotiating time to start picking and programming hours instead of programming 2-week periods at a time. So the way I kind of foresee my bookings in the future are going to be, well, I've got Wednesday at 7 p.m. available, and I've got Tuesday at 9 a.m. or 10 a.m. available as well. And then I'm going to start programming it kind of like a TV channel instead of a flat 2 weeks straight guaranteed. Those days are over. Well, not over, but they're definitely adapting as we're facing this post-pandemic world that we're living in. So I think there's going to be a lot of opportunity for alternative content. What's great about, like, for example, music, and we'll just go back to that because it's so easy, is that if you're a fan of, let's say, said artist, all I have to do is fill 70 seats in an auditorium of the fan's artist in that city. So it's more easy to pull those 70 people to come see that on that one night event on a Wednesday night at 8 o'clock than it is to program a kid's film at 8 o'clock that is in its 4th week, or whatever. Likely you're going to have empty auditoriums, and we're, with the VPFs ending and everything's kind of going those ways, it's just opening the doors for how do we program smart? How do we get these screens filled up with occupancy on every hour of the day? So I'd love to start programming TV series, like Marvelous Mrs. Maisel on Monday nights, and work a deal out with Amazon, or get the next hot series from HBO Max, or there's the kind of thinking that a buyer is doing right now. We need to adapt, and we need alternative content to come in and flood our cinemas with, so I can get this niche and that niche and this niche and that niche and bring them all in. And there we go. We're better than we were pre-pandemic at that.
Yeah, Joe, I think those are excellent points. And I think that's, certainly what we're thinking. I think a lot of people in our space are thinking is, how can event cinema evolve in our new world to help our partners, for all of us to have success. But, in light of how things are changing and have changed, how are we going to, evolve ourselves and evolve the category? Because we obviously all think there's a lot of opportunity for event cinema coming out of this. I think we have questions. Maybe I'm wrong. And I think we're also running out of time. So I don't know if anyone wants to say anything last. Oh, no, here's Matt.
Can you hear us?
Yep. Hey.
Good. Great job so far, guys. And we do have a couple questions that came through. I want to start by throwing this one to Joe. Joe, you've shared a lot of great information about Cinepolis and your thought process around this. I want to tie in a couple things that you said to the specific audience that we have here, which is more the dine-in, luxury, fancy dine-in version, right? When you said a couple times, and maybe the other two ladies said it as well, so I'll let you chime in too, but I remember Joe saying it. You generically said, "We killed it," right? I can't remember what you were talking about, which event you were talking about that you aired, but you actually said, "We killed it."
BTS.
What does that mean?
I killed it means that we overperformed than what our expectations were.
From a ticket sales perspective, for an ad,
on ticket sales, on food and beverage sales, everything. Like when we kill it, it's we knocked it out of the ballpark. These are just saying success on all levels.
Yeah, good. So that's what I was hoping you were going to say. So let me be a little more specific in my question, and because I think it's something that that is a kind of an unknown opportunity for the dine-in market specifically, and that is, there's user behavior patterns that when someone comes to a dine-in theater to watch, a typical Hollywood movie, that they sit down before the film starts, the show starts, they order their food, yada yada yada, and they end up spending a pretty predictable amount of money in that 2 hours, right? Well, some of these events, some live events, from my understanding, the timing of them is a little different. They might actually go longer. And of course, we've all been to a live concert, right? I'm sure Billie Eilish, people don't go to the concession stand once at a Billie Eilish concert. They go to the concession stand 6 times, and they wait in line every time, and then they spend $15 every time they go to the concession stand, or they're buying from the beer guy when he's coming around, right? So would in your, whether or not you had the specific data in front of you or not, or understanding, do you think it's fair to say that dine-in, if you have the right events for your demographic, that instead of doing $15, $17, $18, $19 per caps, you might double those or something?
I think that's a realistic thing. I mean, for Cinepolis, we have the call button, not, and a lot of the dine-in cinemas have that call button. So our waiters know to, once that button's called, you have a certain amount of time to get the waiter to come over. And you know, I've done several of the concerts here at our Westlake Theater where I've gone myself just as a fan of the band, and hitting that button and ordering drinks just on a pretty regular basis is pretty good. I think the only setbacks you have are your liquor license only allows a certain amount of drinks or something like that. I mean, all states are different and all counties are, but you know, we definitely see spikes in our food and beverage numbers when we have these alternative contents and they are working. So, I mean, if 3 people show up for an art thing, you're not going to do great. But if you have a whole auditorium on Tuesday night that's there to see that band, you're doing great. And like we're doing things like with, The Big Lebowski, the classic title, you just have to advertise a White Russian,
Yeah.
like 1 second, and you've got trays of White Russians going out, and it works, I mean, love to see it on screen and have it in their hand.
That's what that's what's different about this opportunity, right? People go to the cinema and they're when they're seeing a regular Hollywood film, there's this environment that you walk into, and it's not conducive to ordering a tray of shots, right? But event cinema is. I mean, event cinema can be that kind
Well,
of.
you gotta think the cinemas are the best sound and the best image that you have in most of these towns. So you could get up and theoretically dance in the aisles. I don't see why that couldn't be a thing. I mean, pandemic obviously limiting that, but why not? So why do we have to limit ourselves to, we have to sit in this seat and enjoy it and be quiet? Like, you're watching a concert and it's the Rolling Stones rocking out. Yeah, I'm gonna enjoy it in this auditorium. It's gonna be fun. I'm gonna have my friends, and which I've done in over a year. And
Exactly.
It's really safe. It is a safe environment for you to bring guests in to spend quality time with their friends, and seeing the best of the best. Right.
So let me ask you this, and maybe this is where we can get Lynne and Kymberli to chime in. When it sounds like Joe made a comment a little bit ago about the one event that we wouldn't let him, or you wouldn't let him mention the name, that didn't do well, didn't sell any tickets, right? When it comes to promoting these things, promoting these events, are they being promoted on social media, or are they being promoted through the theater, through the cinema chain that's going to advertise them as, this isn't going to the cinema, you're going to an event, you're going to, so this isn't going to be just sitting in your chair, stay off your cell phone, don't order a tray of shots. It's just going to be business as usual at Cinepolis. Or are these things being promoted differently? Is there an effort being put into that? Because the cinema chain people, they probably aren't very good at it, right? I mean, they promote Hollywood films, and Hollywood films get promoted a certain way. And most of that promotion historically has been done by the studios, on television, on radio, on billboards. And the cinema chain just has to leverage that content and throw it out on social media. And companies like Alamo for years and years and years have promoted the weird way of doing it at Alamo, where you go to Rocky Horror Picture Show at midnight and you are standing on the thing. And I remember the first one I went to here in Austin 25 years ago, we threw stuff at the screen at that, and that's why it was packed at midnight, like twice a month, right? Because it wasn't going to see Rocky Horror Picture Show, it was going to party, right? So can you talk a little bit about how these events are being promoted, or is that still a gap that needs to be filled?
It's a really good question. And I think when we look for content, we make sure that we have strong artist engagement. Because if the artist isn't involved and isn't passionate about being in the cinemas and not out there promoting on their official channels, then a lot of times the event will fall flat because fans want to feel like they're getting something special. And so some of the tie-ins are encouraging our cinema partners, like for instance with Stevie Nicks and her whole cranberry campaign on TikTok, you know, doing drinks like Cape Cods, et cetera, and allowing our cinemas to think outside the box and really tie into whatever we're doing. With Monty Python, we gave out little swag bags that were in celebration of the 40th anniversary, and you know, just making it more immersive with the screen. I know that Fathom and both Trafalgar have done screen selfies where people can turn around and take a shot of themselves in the auditorium against a major backdrop of the IP. So everything we can do to create that immersive experience. And I've got to say, globally, you do see a lot more interaction where fans are getting up and dancing or doing mosh pits in the lobbies, and really, you know, making it more of a bigger experience than just attending a movie.
Yeah, you guys did a great job with the Stevie Nicks 24 karat gold and being on the online presence. I mean, every site that I was on, I guarantee I would see a 24 karat gold, you know, ad pop up in my feed somewhere. And that, I think that resonated with the box office success that you guys had. And then clearly the cranberry thing with the million advertising, like you couldn't have anything better happen for you. So I was really excited about that.
Yeah, she's quite the artist. And then back to concessions too. I mean, when you pick the right content, and I'll just throw it out there, when we started the Grateful Dead annual meetup, my God, the concession stand sales were through the roof because we all know, you know, we all know what Grateful Dead fans are doing before they get to the cinemas. So, you know, and the same thing with Trey Anastasia and Fish. So we really look for things that really tie it together and help bring revenue in for our cinema partners, not only with just the content.
Yeah, I would agree with that we look for things in the content. Like we like to add special pieces of content to our events so that it's something that you have to come to the theater experience to see something special, and really get the content partner behind marketing that aspect of it. And also working with content on marketing plans that fit that audience and how to reach them. Like Joe was saying, like where to reach that audience on certain social media channels that's going to resonate. And then there's the anime audience, for example, they can't get enough of like tchotchkes and giveaways. And so when we can work with a content partner to provide that for the people that are attending the event, that does help to draw attendance as well. But I would say that exhibitor partners are really stepping up their game in the past years of marketing event cinema. And the more that you see chains get behind that and really make an emphasis to promote it differently than a studio film, you really see those numbers tick up for those chains that put that effort in.
So we have 3 questions that have come in. They're all kind of similar. One's from Sperling Reich at Celluloid Junkie, and one's from Paul Marcotte at GDC, and then one's from Mark Lewis. And I'm trying to come up with a creative way to combine these because they're all kind of similar. And I understand why they're asking it, because on our Tuesday happy hour call for the last 35 weeks, we spent a good amount of time over those 35 weeks talking about release windows. And you know, again, we'll have several different cinema representatives on there. We never have a representative from a studio on the happy hour, but it's all people like sharing, you know, what they are trying to predict as going to be changes in windows and those kinds of things, right? And it's always, we end up talking a lot about leverage, right? How can you go to the studio and have any sort of leverage, because that's historically not really taken place, right? And so, but these questions are about, you know, having different kinds of content and knowing that things are shifting right now. Is it not the right time to leverage that to make sure that the future of the agreements that are done with Hollywood are not so, I'll say, lopsided? What do you think?
Yeah, I think the big paradigm here is that Mark asked a question specifically to a studio / streamer. So he's almost flipping it on its ear. in the sense that instead of, one of the suggestions he had was, well, instead of having an exclusive in the theater and then go to streaming, he was thinking the Amazon Netflix, since they're the studio, they can actually have a subscriber benefit. So they could possibly actually offer tickets or maybe even promotions, and then it goes to the streaming.
Any thoughts?
Well, I'm sorry.
Oh, go ahead, Joe. Go ahead.
So what we're seeing is with like the titles that are going straight to streaming, with the smaller companies, they're not getting the marketing dollars behind it. So the awareness on the title when it hits theatrical is nil. There's almost no awareness. So customers aren't just coming out to see, the next new film. When it comes to leverage, it's a hard thing, because the studios are going to say, look, we've got the best title, like Wonder Woman. We're going to offer it, on our streaming channel, but we're going to let you play it in your theaters as well. Well, there's a time right now where there's no content, so we need to take as much as we can. That's going to change over, the end of pandemic and those numbers coming back to where they were. But I think the opportunity here is this alternative content. And this is where the alternative content space becomes more powerful, because we're going to utilize hours of the day with these alternative content and not be so in need of the majors, first run content. So that traditional window is important for a theater to survive, regardless of what they want to believe or not. And to maximize the dollar on the PVOD and SVOD and all of those, they need to have the success of the theatrical run to resonate into that PVOD model. So I think there's going to be, we're just in the testing phases right now of what's that window look like, where does it go, and how does it ultimately end up? And my guess is it's going to be shorter than the 90-day window that was there, but it won't be as short as day and date. And I think that there's a mix somewhere in the middle that we'll probably find out what works right. And it works for, last thing we want to do is lose money, and the last thing the studio wants to do is lose money. So we're trying to maximize those dollars. The problem is the studio now has 100% of the rights, like Disney with Disney Plus and Disney titles. So why would they want a third party like a movie theater to play their stuff and have to share the revenue in that? We all know that it's a $12 billion business. There's a lot of money there to say, oh, we're going to make that up on our PVOD model. I don't think that that's likely. I think that the theatrical model is still special. It's always going to be special. People like to leave their house. They like to go to a movie theater. They like to get a night out. A date night is something that people love. And I think it's a thing that we'll never see go away. Is there too many theaters in America? Yes. So there's going to be a decline of that. So the screens themselves will become more valuable, that are open, that are working. And those are all the ebb and flow of how this is going to work itself out in the long run. So I'm still positive that theaters will survive. Theaters will have a different window, but they will have a window. It's just going to look different than what we saw pre-pandemic.
And what I was going to say is Event Cinema has done such a great job, and across everyone on this panel, of creating that differentiator. So adding the exclusive content, adding the immersive elements that you can't get watching on another platform at home with your family. And that's what truly makes us special. And then the other point I want to make is, right now, HBO Max and Netflix and Amazon, they're all doing incredible with subscribers. The content well is drying up a little bit, and the competition is going to be heating up for them to differentiate themselves from other platforms. And that's where I think that they can really use Event Cinema, to the point that was made earlier, to really rise above their other competitors and do something in cinema to create that community. Because that's one thing they don't have. It's flat dimensional, single dimensional viewing at home, and creating a community is really going to help them in the competitive landscape.
Definitely.
You guys did great. I would really appreciate Bernadette. Thanks for putting this together. And thanks to the rest of you, the three of you that did a great job preparing and answering the questions perfectly. We do have, as we get more questions, we might send them over to you. throughout the day. We'll email them to you or hit you on the chat if you're hanging around. But thank you very much. Thank you to Spotlight for sponsoring, being our big dog pivot sponsor this year, and for helping drive this session. We really appreciate it.